On today's video, we have to work on this little girl's mom and dad. Welcome back to Nate the Hoof Guy. First up, we've got the old man in the chute, and it didn't take long to figure out what his deal was. So the story on this guy, the farmer noticed that this foot was a little swollen. He's walking on it fine, but I was here to trim the other cow anyway, so we thought we'd bring him in just to make sure this wasn't a problem. And it's a good thing we did because there is something in here. I apologize for the wind noise, guys. Apparently the wind was blowing directly into the mic. I didn't notice that at the time, but we'll work through it. So one of the comments I get all the time is that if these animals were out on pasture, this simply would not happen. Well, this guy here, he's been out on pasture all summer long. And guess what? This stuff does happen to pasture animals. It's just different causes that might do it. While pressure and slips might do it when they're on concrete, there could be simple things like uneven tracks, or perhaps he had a rock that got caught in this white line. You never know, but these things do happen to animals out on pasture just the same, so we have to treat them much the same way. You'll notice when I trim this foot up, I'm not going to take anything off of that claw on the left because it's in perfect shape. The only reason we have to take anything off of this other claw is that because there's a problem in there, there's an excess amount of hoof growth there, or lack of wear, however you want to look at it, so we're going to trim that up. But even still, there's not a lot to remove here. Just a quick trim up, and then we'll get back to work. So there, the farmer was watching, wanted to figure out what was happening, so I explained it to him. I'm just going to let you listen to a little bit of our conversation on how we're going to treat him as we go forward. I don't think I'm going to block him, just because we don't have to worry about taking it off, you know. Yeah, it's not going to be easy to get it off, so we'll just wrap it up. Go that route with him instead of a block. So now, obviously on this day, the farmer's here watching, but that's not always the case. A lot of times I'm left to myself. I trim the cows, and then I'll write them all down on a sheet. Any of the problems they may have, I document those. Any of the treatments that I perform, I document those. And then any extra notes at the end of the day, as far as any extra things that might need to be done or looked at, I'll also write those down. So that's how we can document things. It's always nice if the farmer's there to watch me treat them, and they can see exactly what's going on and what the problem was. Well, that's it for Dad. Now, typically, I let these guys go right out the front. But in this case, he's got to actually go backwards back into the barn with these other animals, so I got to carefully back him out. Now, that means I have to walk in that chute. And with a bull, you got to be careful with that. So I'm taking my time, making sure that he's going back carefully, and I can get out of the way if I need to. But he's pretty docile, so we don't have to really worry too much about him, but you always got to keep your wits about you just in case. Now it's time, well, we got to bring Mom in the chute. Not a lot wrong with Mom. The only problem with her is she's got some long toes. One's got a corkscrew, and the other one, well, it's just long. So first, we're going to tackle this corkscrew claw. Now, once again, I'm not going to take much off of that claw on the left, or that medial claw. Everything I'm going to remove is going to come from that lateral. The only reason that there's growth there is because of this corkscrew now in this case, and because of that, this foot's not wearing properly. So I'm going to do a little extra trimming. I'm going to do a deeper model than I typically would, because that's kind of the area that's causing this corkscrew. Because of that growth there, it has a tendency to make that foot want to turn a little bit. So I'm going to remove more there, and that's going to give a longer period of time to keep that corkscrew from happening again. It's very likely that she will start to corkscrew again. It's kind of a genetic condition, but we'll see what happens with this one. I'm going to give her a quick trim up, and we'll move to that other foot and take care of that long toe. When I was talking about a deeper model, this is the area I'm going to do that right here. This is where we find the typical sole ulcer. That's why they call it the typical sole ulcer site. But anyway, I'm going to model here. This is going to prevent this corkscrew from happening for just a little bit longer, as I mentioned earlier, and that way we don't have to trim her as often. Now we're going to slide over, and we're going to work on that long toe. Now with this medial claw, there is a little bit to trim away, not necessarily sole depth, but just some loose stuff that's hanging on there. When we look at the claw on the left here, or the lateral claw in this case, you can see how it's growing a little bit funny. Once it gets big like this and it's not making correct ground contact, then that problem just exacerbates. It gets worse and worse because it's not wearing properly. So what we do is we trim this claw, get it back to the normal angle that it's supposed to be by creating the normal thicknesses in that claw. Once we do that, now when she takes that step, everything is going to make contact like it should. And when that happens, then this claw should wear properly. Now, there are some signs of laminitis with this claw. You'll notice that thickening toward the white line area there, and there's a little bit of a paddle toe type appearance to it where that toe gets really flat and wide. That's a sign that there might have been some laminitis at some point in her life. So we're just going to trim this down, get this back to a normal shape so it once again performs like it's supposed to when it touches the ground. And with that, Mama's done. Now, once again, we're going to back her out of the chute. There's really only one thing left to do, and that is to check with Baby and make sure she approves of all this. Well, what do you think, little miss? She's not impressed. Back to the hay.